Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy Nick and we are back with another video. So for today's video guys, coming at you guys with another haircut tutorial. We got my boy Michael coming through. Now I haven't seen him in a couple months. He's been growing his hair back out, so he's looking a little rough when he came through. So I'm gonna give him a nice clean mid fade, and then also I'm just gonna skim across the top to check to make sure everything's even. But before we get into that, if you guys are new to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also turn on those post notifications so you're alerted every time I drop a video. So with all that being said, let's get right into the video.
Alright guys, so we got my boy Michael. Now like I said, we're going to be doing a mid fade, and they're just going to be checking over the top to make sure everything's even. Now he used to have his hair long on top, but a couple months ago he decided to cut all that off, go down to a buzz cut, so he's in the process of growing his hair back out. So first we're just going to go ahead and wet his hair and separate the long hair from the short hair. So now I'm going to use my duck clips to make sure none of this hair falls in the way while I'm performing the fade on the sides. So now I'm going to take my number 3 guard and I'm just going to clear out some of this bulk on the side of his head. Now I'm making sure to flick out at the top where his head starts to round. So this number 3 guard is going to be the highest guard that I'm going to be using. Everything above that is going to be clipper over comb. So this helps me mentally prepare myself when it comes to the fade, because I know I'm just fading into a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and start my first guideline. Now this is going to be my bald guideline. Now I'm going to run this around half of his head, and I'm going to make sure to drop it a little bit in the back to help fit the shape of his head. So now I'm going to take my 0A blade, I'm going to set my second guideline. Now I'm going to run this around half of his head again, and I'm going to make this about 1 inch to 1/2 inch wide. And you want to make sure that this guideline is as clean as possible. The cleaner your guidelines are, the cleaner that your fade's going to come out. Now with my oyster topazes with the lever halfway open, I'm going to go ahead to start to buff out this line. Now you want to make sure you use your corners so you don't set another line, and also as long as you don't go above where you set that guideline with the 0A, you don't have to worry about raising that fade at all. And also you want to be constantly brushing or combing your client's hair throughout this whole process. So there was a little residual of the line that was left behind from when I made my first guideline. So I'm going to take my T outliners, and using the corners, I'm just going to go ahead and buff out the rest of that line. Now with my 1.5 blade, I'm going to go ahead and set my third guideline, remembering to make this about 1 inch to 1/2 inch wide, and you want to make sure this is as clean as possible. Alright, so now I have my 1A detachable blade on my clippers, and I'm just going to go ahead and down fade, remembering just to use the corner of my blades, and as long as I don't go above that 1.5 line, I don't have to worry about raising that fade. And as you can see, now I have my number 1 blade on the clipper, and I'm going to continue to do the same thing all around his head, and then I'm going to come back with my 0A blade and just take out the remainder of this line. And also guys, if you don't have detachable blades, this is the equivalent to me doing the number 1 guard lever open to the number 1 guard with the lever closed to the half guard lever halfway, and then I'm going to come back with my oyster topazes and just clean up the remainder of the line. I'm just using detachables because I just wanted to switch it up, and I found that it's helping me out. But don't get too caught up in what you're using, just get the process down and everything else will fall into place. So now I have my number 2 clip on my magic clips, and if you guys remember earlier from when I cleared out the bulk, I was using a number 3. So I'm just going to flick out at this bulk, trying not to make a line. Now I'm just going to flick off the curvature of his head, and I'm going to backdoor this with my 1.5 clip just to soften up some of this bulk at the top. So now I have my 1 guard lever all the way open, and I'm just going to come back and take out any residual of that line that was left behind that I set with my 1.5 guard. So now I'm going to take my comb and get ready for clipper over comb. Now I'm going to hold this comb at a 45-degree angle, and I'm just going to take it straight up off of his head and only cut the hair that the comb is feeding me. Now you don't want to push this too deep in his head because it's going to cut too much hair off. You only want to cut the hair that the comb is feeding you. Now I'm going to come back with my Anda shaver and continue to bald him out. You could either do this at the beginning or the end. I just find it easier to do it at the end, because sometimes if you do it at the beginning, you could set a guideline that's too harsh. I found that when I do it at the end, I'm able to flick out. And even if I do set another line, I'm able to come back with my T outliners and buff that out. Now, as far as the other side, I sped things up a little bit, but I'm going to be doing the exact same process. And like I said earlier, guys, I just chose to use detachables, but the process is still the same. So as long as you figure out your process and understand your guards, you should be able to do any type of fade with any type of clipper. Now, you just don't want to single yourself out and say, hey, I use wall clippers, hey, I use Andy's clippers. You want to be able to perform a fade with any type of clipper, no matter what scenario. So just get your process down and learn your guards, and everything else will fall into place. So like I said, I'm just going to do the exact same thing all around, and I'm just going to let you guys watch. Now I'm going to hit him with the edge up. Normally on these types of haircuts, I think it's better to leave it a little bit more natural, but he has a little bit of a widow's peak, so we're just going to knock down some of those hairs, and we're just going to keep it as natural as possible. So I'm just going to start in the middle and then work my way out. Alright, so now for the top, I'm going to go ahead and wet his hair a little bit more. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, he's in the process of growing his hair back out, so I'm just going to skim across the top and make sure everything's even. So now after checking across the top to make sure everything's even, I'm gonna start by blow drying his hair. Now I'm gonna start in the back of his head and then work my way to the front using my roller brush and my blow dryer. So now I took about a quarter size amount of Suavecito matte pomade and I'm gonna rub it through my hands, get it all worked out, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and rub it all through his hair to make sure I get it from the roots to the tips. Now I like to use a deep tooth comb in the front, and I also like to rub my hands through there too as well. It gives it more of a natural look. It doesn't look as styled. It almost looks a little bit more free flowy, like his hair naturally wants to lay like this. Alright guys, so here's the before. And then here's the after. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Be on the lookout for more videos. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, like, turn on those post notifications. And until next time guys, I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace.